Namaskar, viewers. Welcome to this latest episode of the Nationalist View. Today we have with us a very special guest, Shri Mohinder Gulati ji. Mohinder ji, a warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule to talk to us. And Mohinder ji has been a former Chief Operating Officer of United Nations Sustainable Energy for All, and he is currently also the President of Global Hindu Temple Network America. And we are going to talk about broadly a report which GHTN, that is Global Hindu Temple Network, has brought out on the atrocities committed against Hindus in Bangladesh. So, first, I just want to ask Mr. Gulati if you could tell us, give us a brief overview of what Global Hindu Temple Network does, what exactly is GHTN, and also some of the key takeaways from the report which you have compiled or prepared.
Okay. Thank you very much, Arunji, for having me on your show. I have watched your show in the past, and I have to say that I quite like the way you conducted the focus on the substance, no hyperbole, and I'm thankful to you and your viewers for a wonderful, wonderful channel. On as to the Global Hindu Temple Network, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to connect all the Hindu temples around the world into a network. And that network is for the purpose of creating shared information, shared awareness, shared consciousness, so that they can raise their voice in a coordinated and collective manner. This is the era of democracy. Voice matters, but coordinated and collective voice matters more. And therefore, wherever there is discrimination against Hindus, and there's plenty around the world, as we have seen, we want the Hindu communities, the temple communities, to be able to raise their voice collectively. Back in India, the temples are under government controls in many, many states. And we have seen the adverse impact of deprivation of Hindus from the use of the capacity, resources, and assets of their mandirs for their own benefit, and how the Hindus have been decapacitated by the government control of temples over more than a century. And that is why we are working with other organizations. We want the temples to be free of government control so that the Hindus can, one, protect their dharma, they can propagate it, and the mandirs, as they used to be the anchors of the society in the past, it was not just for the religious and spiritual purposes, it was also for many other activities, the cultural activities, the social activities, the economic activities, and mandirs contributed enormously to the economy of local economy of the city or the place wherever they were. So they were not only an anchors for bringing cohesion in the society, making it an energetic, thriving society, but also as a contributor to the economy of the society. So therefore, Gurukuls, for example, the Yogshalas, Vedshalas, all these used to be run in the temples, which we have over a period of time lost. The government doesn't control any other places of worship except Hindus. So they seem to have special affection for Hindus, and that we are saying we don't want that special affection. Leave it to ourselves, and we will manage our mandirs. We can manage international corporates. I'm sure we can manage our mandirs as well. So primarily, this is what the objective, the rationale for the Global Hindu Temple Network is. We have two organizations, one in India, one in the US. In India, it is called Global Hindu Temple Network, and you can go to our website, ghtn.in, and you can get all the information. And in America, we have a non-profit, which is called GHTN America. So this is what the purpose of the Global Hindu Temple Network is. And we raise our voice in collaboration with other organizations wherever we see the discrimination against Hindus or atrocities against Hindus. So that's what we try to do.
Mr. Gulati, you have recently come out with a report on atrocities against Hindu minorities, Hindus who are minority in Bangladesh, especially after Sheikh Hasina was ousted in the first week of August, and she had to flee. And then after that, Yunus regime came there, and Yunus regime was considered to be basically a puppet of US deep state, and that is the general perception about among the analysts also. And then Jamaat-e-Islami, Hizb ut-Tahrir, and a number of other radical organizations got active, and we saw kind of a concerted genocide of Hindus, which happened there, and there were massive attacks. And off late, and these are still continuing. And you came out with a very well documented report on that. And so I just wanted you to elaborate upon what are the key takeaways from these report of this report, and where all you have basically submitted this report.
Okay. One that this atrocities that you see against Hindus, and not only Hindus, also against other religious minorities, which is Christians, Buddhists, even Chakmas, I mean, who are Hindus but they are tribals in the Northeast Tract. These atrocities are not something new. We are just noticing it now because they become much more visible. People are more aware. There is more media awareness. Fortunately, these cannot be hidden by the mainstream media anymore as they used to do in the past. So the social media is bringing out more of this information. Also, because of the technology, the information is becoming more easily available, and that is why people are suddenly now noticing, which the Bangladesh Hindus and other minorities have been crying for decades. This genocide, which is a slow motion genocide. It started a long time ago. It started with Direct Action Day, the Noakhali massacre, which is well documented. And the most severe genocide happened in 1971 when when it was a part of Pakistan. And it's all very well documented that the Pakistan army, they slaughtered 3 million people, out of which more than 90% were Hindus. It was all targeted attacks on Hindus to cleanse Bangladesh of Hindu minority, which they had done also in Pakistan. So they knew very well how to run this slaughter machine of Pakistan army. The information that has been gathered by several is that during 1971, between 200 to 300,000 women were raped. And this is the atrocities which have not, and one thought that after 1971, this will all stop. Unfortunately, it did not. And that has been a very systematic and very systemic approach of forcing the Hindus, particularly, but also other minorities, to run away from Bangladesh. And that is why the report, we have called it Bangladesh Religious Minorities Killed, Converted, and Forced to Flee. And you'll be surprised to hear that this is a technique which is not just unique to South Asia. This is a technique that has been applied also in Central Asia or in other countries where Islamists came into power and they wanted the minorities either to convert or to run away. This is a slogan which you heard in Kashmir, Ralib Galib Chalib, which is what it means, that you either you convert or you get killed or you are forced to run away. This is what you heard also with the Armenian Christians in Central Asia. So this is a toolkit. This is a technique that is applied for atrocities against minorities wherever the Islamic powers come into power in the country. So therefore, what we have tried to highlight in this report is, one, that whatever is happening today in Bangladesh is not something one-off. It is not something that has happened just now. This is a systematic persecution of Hindus and other minorities that has been going on since 1946. So therefore, we have provided that historical context. And then we have documented the atrocities that have happened now. And the problem is that it's not only the Bangladesh government, but also, or the Bangladesh society, I would say largely, but even the international organizations have ignored it shamelessly, I would say. Strong words, but one is compelled to use these strong words when you see such behavior of the international institutions. Many activists in the US have been trying to get the US Congress to declare 1971 as a Bangladesh genocide which you'll be surprised, not more than 15 to 20, actually just about 20 congressmen and senators were willing to support that bill, hoping that with the changes in the geopolitics and also changes in the US government, that the genocide of religious minorities in Bangladesh will start getting some attention. So what we have done is that we have sent it to the UN Department of Peace Operations, because Department of Peace Operations engages various armed forces from member countries for sending them as peacekeepers in other countries. And Bangladesh sends a very large contingent, and Bangladesh Armed Forces, for them, this is the most lucrative assignment that they can get. So Bangladesh gets a lot of revenue from this, and the Bangladesh Armed Forces get a lot of income from this, very lucrative assignment. And our argument to the UN Department of Peacekeeping Operations is that an armed force which is complicit in genocide of minorities in its own country, how can they be hired by UN for peacekeeping in other countries? How do you expect that they will be neutral, that be unbiased, that their biases or prejudices that they have for atrocities against minorities, how is it that they will not do the same thing in the other countries? So therefore, and morally, it is not right. I mean, UN is not that much of a moral force anymore. They have diluted it uh, consistently, unfortunately, that this is immoral and unethical for the UN Department of Peacekeeping Operations to hire Bangladesh Armed Forces for any peacekeeping. We have also sent it to the international financial institutions, which is the World Bank, IMF, Asian Development Bank. They all have their gender policies. And unfortunately, these gender policies don't even recognize that the women and girls of religious minorities in several of these countries are treated so atrociously that it is inhuman. And therefore, they are in violation of their own policies. And that is what we are requesting them, that in their gender policies, they should include a special reference and a special action for protection of the girls and women of religious minorities in whichever country is they're lending. We saw that World Bank can do it very successfully. European Union and the World Bank did that very successfully for Roma, who were treated badly in Eastern Europe. And I have a personal experience of that project and those activities in Eastern Europe where I had worked. That the same thing should be done here as well. That there should be a special attention. That they should assign one person for monitoring and measuring what is happening to the religious girls and women of religious minorities, and also have a clear metrics as a requirement for them to borrow from World Bank, ADB, and IMF. So therefore, this is what we are not asking them to do anything extra or special. We are asking them to follow their own policies, which they are violating. So I hope that the heads of these institutions will look into it. They have, unfortunately, they don't respond very well, but unless there is more pressure on them. But anyway, we will persevere with them. Third thing we have done is that we have also approached the private sector. The private sector importers, particularly of ready-made garments, all the brand names that you see, whether that is Gap or whether that is Levi's or Abercrombie Fitch or H&M, Macy's, Target, Walmart, what have you, all of them import ready-made garments, very substantial quantities from Bangladesh. The total annual revenue of Bangladesh is about $56 billion, of which $48 billion comes from export of ready-made garments. And that go to Europe and the US. So these brand names, we are saying that, you are importing it from a country which is committing genocide. You are signatories to what is called a global compact. Under the aegis of United Nations, all the businesses came together, and I was a part of some of those activities, even as a part of UN Global Compact, which we had tried to rope in for the climate change conversations that happened in Paris, and I was involved in that as well, for the Sustainable Development Goals and for the climate change, and therefore I work closely with the UN Global Compact, and I understand how it operates. So we are saying that you have undertaken obligations under the Global Compact. Please comply with it. Otherwise, we will be compelled to say that your brands are soaked in the blood of religious minorities. Very strong words, but then sometimes you have to shake up the conscience of these people. So therefore, we have already approached all of them, and we will start raising that issue more forcefully in the new year and in the coming months. We have also written to Government of India, and I have to say we are disheartened that Government of India has not taken it up as forcefully as it could and as it should. I don't know, I can't speak for Hindus in India, but I certainly can speak for the diaspora, Indian diaspora in the US. That is 4 million strong, and the overall diaspora is about 35 million strong. And 90% of that, more than 90% of the Indian diaspora is Hindus. And I can tell you that we all talk to each other. We have a lot of conversation. We have done a lot of activities here, demonstrations in many cities. We are quite disappointed that we are not being we're not getting our due. The Indian government is not standing up for the religious minorities in the subcontinent, who I call as the unmet obligations of partition. These people stayed back. They did not move because there was this assurance given under Nehru Liaquat Pact, and everybody knows about it. Even if that pact was not there, still that was the underlying principle of the partition, that even though some countries, one country was being created on the basis of religion, but there will be protection for the religious minorities in either of those countries. And that is an unmet obligation. So therefore, India has to hold Pakistan and Bangladesh, but right now we are talking about Bangladesh. 1971, when 93,000 prisoners of war were taken by India, India did not hold even a single one of them for accountable for their war crimes. These were huge war crimes, and India, instead of holding them accountable for war crimes, they were treating them better than their own soldiers, which is awful. But at least now India can correct that mistake. The balance of trade with Bangladesh is so adverse that we export so much, almost about 11-12 billion dollars of worth of critical goods to Bangladesh, and India can certainly take action on that. And it doesn't have to be a Government of India action of sanctions, which I don't think works very well and is not good for the international architecture. That actually undermines the international architecture. So we are not saying impose sanctions. What we are saying is the Reserve Bank of India should ask the banks who will be negotiating the letters of credit for export to Bangladesh, that they should do their due diligence. They should comply with the principles of prudent lending. And the Bangladesh banks are bankrupt. The political risk of trading with Bangladesh is so high that it should not, no insurance company will even insure it. So why is it that the Reserve Bank is letting the commercial banks to violate the prudential lending norms for negotiating the letters of credit for export to Bangladesh? That's not even political. That is a financial risk that Government of India and the Indian banks are taking. So therefore, there is this range of actions that we have proposed in our report, and we will continue to follow that. In addition, we are saying that the Bangladesh government should be required not only to protect the minorities, but also the damage that has been done, they should be compensated. They should be repaired, and they should be compensated for that. And the minorities there have an eight point demand, which should be recognized, and therefore that should be supported by the US, by the European Union, by India, and by the UN. One or two of those, which are very important, that there should be a reservation of seats in their parliament for the minorities. And these should be rotated so that message goes down not only in wherever they are in majority or they have large number, but that should be rotated toward Bangladesh. So therefore, there is a consciousness that grows in the society that yes, the minorities have to be protected. And there are many other demands that they have. So what 8-point demand charter that they have, that is something that that should be supported. So therefore, this is as far as the action on these fronts is concerned. Yes, Arun.
I wanted to ask a larger question, taking this issue because such kind of things these are happening in Pakistan, these are happening in Bangladesh. This happened in Leicester also, in where Hindus were targeted. This happened in Canada, in temples, in New Zealand, in Australia. You travel a lot, and you have also been basically working in the field of kind of basically, having an organized network to take up these issues as what we may call Hinduphobia. Uh, do you think that we need to be like Jews are much more well organized? So, though being, despite being a small community, and that goes both ways. It's much easier to organize a smaller community. But do you think that Hindus are not, they need to be organized better? Their response mechanism needs to be better, even, and especially not only in terms of the diaspora but within the country also to take up these kind of issues. So what is the sense which you get, because we do not get that kind of traction in the international media, and as you rightly pointed out, the responses are not adequate from the international organizations also, this despite India being such a emerging as an economic power, and India also playing an important role in United Nations. So there seems to be what you call asymmetry between the kind of weight we seem to be having at the global stage and when it comes to the causes of Hindus. So the response mechanism, or whether it is international media, international organizations, as I mentioned earlier. So how do you see this basically?
That's an excellent question, Arunji. And that is something which is at the heart of creating this global Hindu temple network. We have been feeling that. Now, it's not a question of size of a community. We know, we have seen not only the small communities like Jews have organized themselves very well, but even very large communities whose numbers run in billions, they also organize themselves very well. So it's a question of the leadership. It's a question of the society feeling that there is that need for that organization. There is certainly the very deep angst that I see in among Hindus, but they don't seem to be knowing as to how do you organize, what kind of organization should be there. Uh, Let me just step back a little bit, and maybe that's my hypothesis, that there are four circles of security that any community has. One is your family and friends. Something happens, they are the first responders. Then it is your neighborhood or the larger neighborhood around you who come in aid of each other and support and defend each other. And then comes a broader community of whether that's your co-religionist or whether that's your community or whatever identity that you assume. So particularly the religion, the religious identity, the co-religionists, they stand up for each other, whether it is their Christians are being treated badly in Myanmar, then all Christians will rise up. Whether it's a some Muslims being treated badly, the entire Ummah will rise up, which is their co-religionists. They stand up for each other. And then finally, in today's democratic world, we surrender the monopoly over violence to the state. So these are the four levels of security that you have. In case of Hindus, we have outsourced it too much to the state, which a weak and politically compromised state or its politics does not defend you because you don't raise your voice. You are not seen as a important, organized, coordinated political voice. So therefore, divide them and you can use them, and why bother? So therefore, state has actually failed us in that sense. The are your co-religionists, they are not organized. There is no organization other than some political organizations taking up your cause. And as I generally say, our Hindus have to learn and understand politics is your instrument. Politics is not your institution. Use politics as an instrument for getting what you need to protect yourself, but don't depend on politics as your institution, because it has its own vagaries, it has its own weaknesses and strengths, and therefore you don't want to be held hostage to the political misfortunes or fortunes of a political party and be hitched on that bandwagon. So therefore, politics is your instrument, not an institution. And therefore, what they're depending on is their immediate neighborhood. Unfortunately, we have seen in Bangladesh, Pakistan, and even in Kashmir, your neighbors actually betray you. When that is the kind of social ethos, then you cannot depend on them for protecting you, which we have seen. I mean, Kashmir also the same thing happened. And therefore, we have to think about how do we organize ourselves to be able to have first responders, first line of defense. And that first line of defense will come from organizing the community, local community. They should be able to stand up together for supporting each other. How do you do that? Mandirs were the anchors for bringing that cohesion. That is why we go back to the mandirs, that the mandirs have to create an ecosystem for equipping the temple community or the Hindu community around the temple, to equip them intellectually, physically, organizationally. You need three types of organization strength. Equip them intellectually, equip them physically, and equip them organizationally, so that they can then stand up, and before the state can react, before state can be forced to react, that at least you have the first line of defense to fight against discrimination. And this is not something which happens only once in a while. Something big happens, that is why you come together. No, these are the battles you have to fight at every step. No battle is too small to be fought, because the stages of genocide, if you see, it starts with, I actually have my hypothesis of 7 stages of genocide. Maybe I'll write about it one of these days, which I presented in some seminars. But let me just tell you what those 7 stages, according to me, are. And it's not my original. I've borrowed some of the ideas from literature. But it starts with denigration. You denigrate the community you want to subjugate. So it starts with denigration, then the discrimination, then happens a dehumanization. You vandalize their temples, you broke their idols, damage, and do all kinds of insulting things to their temples. Then comes demographic coercion. Slowly, the demography starts changing. Either it's a forced conversion or there is a demographic shift that happens. Then comes the stage of demographic coercion. Then comes the destruction of the community's capacity, as Bangladesh did. This is a land grab. They forced their businesses to shut down. There was this Enemy Property Act, which then got converted into a Vested Property Act. So therefore, slowly you start eroding the capacity of the community, be able to economically and financially independent, or have the capacity to participate in the economic and social processes of the country. So therefore, you destroy their capacity, which is also what happened in Kashmir. Gradually, the capacity of the community was destroyed. And that is when they're so subjugated that you can commit genocide. And once you have committed the genocide, then you have the Muhammad Yunuses of this world who will deny it. Farooq Abdullahs of this world will deny it. And your colleagues in the mainstream media, they become accomplice in perpetuating that denial, which we have all seen, that this genocide, either they'll say, oh, this is exaggerated, or it didn't happen, or it was an economic reason, as your journalist friend said that in Kashmir, or it is a political thing, as Muhammad Yunus is saying, and the New York Times is saying, or it is not communal, it is political, as if killing people for political reason is somehow kosher, but killing them for communal reason is not. So these are the stages of genocide.
But sir,
so therefore, this is what so therefore, just to come back to the question as to what is that Hindus can do, we're saying use the mandirs as the anchor for creating that cohesion and capacity in the community to, one, understand the broader picture, connect the dots. And this is not something which has happened way back past, or sometimes before partition or during partition or in 1971 in Bangladesh. It happened in 1947. Then it happened in 1971. Then it happened in Kashmir in 1991. Then it happened in Bangladesh in 2021. How long can this go on? And therefore, Hindus have to understand that discrimination against Hindus or atrocities or genocide of Hindus in Bangladesh is not going to remain confined only to Bangladesh. Slowly, you already see the signs of that happening in many parts in India as well. So if India had taken action in 1971, I think that's my view that the 1991 Kashmir would not have happened.
Thank you very much, Gulati ji. And what we are going to do for our viewers, we are going to put some links in our description box. So if you want to know more about Global Hindu Temple Network or about this report, or if you want to join them as a volunteer, so you can basically use these links. You can also put your queries in the comment box of this video, and we'll take these queries to Global Hindu Temple Network and Mr. Gulati, and they'll get back to you on this thing. If you have any further questions about what we have discussed, or if you want to know more about it, so please put your questions in the comment box, and we'll take these questions to Mr. Gulati and Global Hindu Temple Network, and we'll get back with the answers on this thing. And if you've liked the video, please share it and subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. You will keep on getting the notifications. And thank you very much, Mr. Gulati, for taking out time from your busy schedule and having this conversation with us. We'll be having many more conversations with Mr. Gulati in days to come, because we are keeping a very close track of Bangladesh. And also, he touched upon the issue of Hindu genocide. I think we need to discuss these things more in detail in days to come to have a better perspective. So thank you very much once again, Mr. Gulati.
Thank
And
you very much. And I hope people will visit our website and become volunteers and also get their mandirs to become members of the network. Thank you very much.
namaskar.